Hello everyone, welcome back to Third Elementary Tutorials. In this lecture we're going to build the website sample homepage using cascading style sheets. Now the use of CSS will allow us to style and control our site. And in this tutorial we're also going to explore some CSS3 techniques such as border radius, box shadow and gradients. And so this is what we're going to be building. So let's jump to Dreamweaver. And the first thing I'm going to do is go to save my file, and I'm going to name this index. Hit enter. And also I'm going to give it a title, and that will be my website. Hit enter. And then on the window menu I'm going to select CSS styles, and I'm going to bring up my CSS panel. So I'm going to click on the plus to create a new CSS rule. Tag, body, new style sheet, click OK, save that. So I'm going to name this website, my website. And then for the whole document I want to have a Verdana font, and for background just a black background. Click OK. I'm going to close that panel here. And as you can see I have two files that need to be saved, so I'm going to go to the file menu, save all. So here's the CSS. And one of the first things I always do is to go and resetting my styles, which is a process of resetting the styles of all elements to a baseline value so that we avoid cross-browser differences due to their built-in default style settings. And so I'm going to write body, heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, heading 5, heading 6, P for paragraph, div for division, UL, and then I. Now these are the elements that I'm going to use. So I'm going to zero the margins and the paddings. Close curly bracket. And now we are ready to start styling our website. So the first thing we're going to do is, let me see this is the finished version here. And the first thing I see here is my website is centered in the middle of the web browser. So that's the first thing we do, and we're going to accomplish this by putting all our website in a container, which in this case I'm going to call it div wrapper. And next, after that, we're going to be creating this area here, which is the div header that has this background image and this my website image. Alright, so let's jump to Dreamweaver and let's create our divs here. So create a little space here. So let's create a first div. That will be the outside div. And the div header, which will have this image right here. Click OK. Save it. And then let's go to the CSS and write the div wrapper rule, which will have a width. Our website will have a width 700 pixels. A little margin. Actually, zero margin for now. I'm going to show you first. And I'm going to close that up. And then let's type the div header. Open curly bracket. The div header has a width of 700 pixels. Let me create a little space here so you can see everything on your screen. And it has a background image, which is the header BG. And then I'm just going to close that out for a second. I'm going to go to the source code, and I'm going to give this div an ID. So place your mouse right there, right after the div, spacebar, ID, div wrapper. That will be the container. Spacebar, ID, div header. Save that. Preview this in Firefox. And this is what we have. Now from the original here, you can see that I have space on the top. This also has been centered, and also I have this space here. Alright, so let's do all that. Let's go to the div header and let's say text align centered, and that will take care of that. It will center my image. And then I'm going to write a descendant selector, div header img, which means inside div header find an element of img and do something. And the img element inside div header is right here. And so I'm going to put a little padding on the top of 20 pixels and a little padding at the bottom, another 20 pixels. Close that up. As for the margin on the top, I used 20 pixels. So that will be top and bottom, left and right for the auto, and that centers my page. And here we go. So to refresh, Control R, Command R on the Mac. And the next thing we have to do is to create this thin line all across. So back to Dreamweaver. Div line, open curly bracket. The line has a width of 700 pixels with a background color of a hex value of 999 and a height of just 1 pixel. Close that up, save it. Let's go to the source code. Place your mouse right there, hit enter, because you want to make sure that the div wrapper contains all your website. So everything will be between here and here. And so div, give this div an ID div line. Save it, go back to Firefox, refresh, here we go. Alright, let's work on the links, and here's the area. Now here I have two divisions. This one division right here, from here extends all this line here, has this background color, and this division contains these links. So back to Dreamweaver again, I'm going to create two divisions. Okay, and this division here will have the links, and so I'm going to use an order list for that, and then the list item. So I'm going to select that, edit, copy, hit return, edit, paste, or Control V or Command D on the Mac. So paste and paste. So the first link is about resume, portfolio, and contact. Say that, Control S to save, Command S to save on the Mac. Now these will link to the appropriate pages, and so make sure that you have from the window menu this insert. So select hyperlink about goes to index.html, resume goes to resume.html, portfolio goes to portfolio.html, and contact goes to contact.html. Hit enter, return, Control S to save, Command S to save, and let's see what we've done. Well, just this. So we need to style things now. As you can see here, my links are horizontal, so we're going to have to do this. Also, my links have a nice gradient in the back. So we've got a lot of work to do here and a lot of things to cover. So let's take things one step at a time. And so I'm going to go to my CSS. And the first big division that will have the links, I'm going to name this div links. And that will have a width of 700 pixels and a background color of a hex value of 666. Close that up, save it, and let's place that here. That's the div links. If I refresh, there we go. Okay, so now this div links will contain my links here, so let's work on that. And I'm going to name this divNav for navigation. So divNav has a width of 384 pixels. And I'm sure the first thing you're going to wonder is, how did I get to this number? And I will explain this a bit later on our tutorial, just a bit later. So that has a background, the same hex value of background, and then it has a height of 36 pixels and margin 0, top to bottom, left to right, auto. So we center that, save it. Let's go to the source code here, give this div an ID, and that will be divNav. Save it. Let's look at the progress. All right, it is centered, but these have to go to they have to go horizontally. We have to place them horizontally, and also we have to take these bullets out. So back to CSS, divNav UL, and let's take the bullets out. List style type none. Now, just to refresh your memory, this UL here and the LIs and paragraphs and headings, they all create their own space. And so what I did here, just to refresh your memory, I zero the margins and the paddings. Okay, so I don't need to do this again. Let's save this, refresh, there goes the bullets. Alright, so continue. So that will be now another descendant selector, divNav UL LI, open curly bracket. We need to place those right next to each other. So we're going to float them to the left. We're going to close this curly bracket. We're going to refresh. Now they're placed right next to each other. Okay. All right. Doing good here. Now this long CSS rule, ULLI A, and let me go back to the code. So we did divNav, then we did divNav UL, and then we did divNav UL LI, and now we're going to write for the anchors. So that will be divNav UL LI and A. That's the A. These are my anchors here, and we need to style our anchor tags. Now, by default, anchors are inline level elements. So we will turn them into block level elements so we can treat them as divs with their own space. And so for us to do that, we're going to display as blocks. There we go. And then let's give it a little height. I'm going to use 20 pixels. Now we're going to use a background color. And for that, I'm just going to use black. And then they also can have a width of 80 pixels. And what else? Well, they're going to have a font size. And I have 0.8 em. They're also going to have a color. And I'm using a white color here. and also they're going to be placed in the center, horizontal center. And let's close this for now. So let's go right here and refresh. Alright, now we gave them a background color, and we need to give it a little space, and also we need to take those underlines, and this has been created automatically when we create links. So let's take the text decoration to none. Okay, let's see that. Let's refresh. There we go. And let's go back to the CSS here. Let's give it a little margin all around. I'm going to say 7 pixels. Save that. Refresh. There you go. Now we start looking better. And let's go back here, and let's not forget, I'm going to do it after the font size. I'm going to say font weight bold. The order doesn't matter, I just want to keep things a little more organized here. Okay, and I'm looking at the original that I've done. It's very close here. Now I do have these gradients and these round corners, but also I have this text here. The links have been vertically centered. So how do I do that? Well, these have to be pushed down, and well, this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to create, after the height here, I'm going to create a line height. Now I'm going to have the line height equal to the height of this its container, and the height of its container is 20 pixels. And now when I refresh, these have been set vertically. So let's work on the rounded corners here. So I'm going to go to my CSS, and I'm going to create a little space here, and then I'm going to type, just for my information, border radius, and then I'm going to select that, and right here it says apply comment. Just apply a comment, and that's just for your information. Okay, just to remember where you're going and what you've done. Alright, so the official recommendation will be border radius, and I'm going to have 5 pixels on that. But now we have to, because this is not official yet, we have to write some prefixes for the Mozilla, for Firefox, and for WebKit, which is Safari and Chrome. And so I'm going to write Moz, and then border, and that will be radius, will be 5 pixels, and let's do the same thing for WebKit, border radius, another 5 pixels, and let's save that. Let's go to Firefox, refresh. Here we go. And also we can test our work using Safari. This works as well. We can also test our work with Chrome, and Chrome works very well as well. Okay, and so let's not forget also to have a nice border. So we can do a border, and that will be 1 pixel border, solid, and color. I'm going to use just a black color here. Save that, refresh. There you go. I know you don't see too much, because now we're going to put the gradient. Now the gradient has a little work here, so let's take this a step at a time. And so I'm going to create some little space here again. I'm going to write a note for myself. That will be the gradients, and I'm going to select that and apply a comment. Okay, and so we're going to start with the Mozilla. So background, it's for Mozilla, Moz, it's a linear gradient. So let's type that, linear gradient. That starts from the top comma, and it has two color stops, one with a hex value of 666, comma, another hex value with 333. Close that, save it, let's refresh. Here we go. Now you can see the border around. Okay, looks pretty good. Now let's do the same thing for the WebKit engine, and I will cover Safari and Chrome. So background, and for that is the WebKit, and that will be gradient. So the gradient is a linear gradient. It starts from the left top, goes to the left bottom, and it has two color stops from open parenthesis 666, close parenthesis, comma, to open parenthesis, another hex value of 333, close parenthesis again, save that, and we need to test this on Safari. There we go, works pretty well. I'm gonna close that for a sec, and then I'm gonna test that on Chrome, and in Chrome it works very well as well. And so I want to test this also in Internet Explorer. So let's go and preview this in Internet Explorer, and as you can see, even running the latest version, it does not, at this time, does not render the gradients. And so that's why you always have to put a background color. Okay, let's see what else there's to do. Let's go back here, and well, let's put the div line here first, and then I will explain how I got to the number of 384. So quickly, back to the source code, copy this, hit return, paste, and refresh. Okay, so actually before I get into how do I get to 384 pixels, we still have to do some work. First, we need to create a CSS rule that indicates that we are on the About, on the home page, and that this link is, this button looks like pressed. And so we have some work to do on that as well. So I'm going to go back to the CSS here, and div nav ul li a hover open curly bracket. Now background color for this, it would be a hex value of 333, and then instead of me writing all this CSS rule, I'm just going to copy, I'm going to paste it there, and for the rollover basically I'm going to use a hex value of 0000, that's the black, to 666. The same thing here, black and gray, and then I'm going to close the curly bracket. Want to refresh that, so when I roll over I get this nice different gradient color. Alright, now let's make sure that we indicate that we are on the home link. So now we're going to have write another CSS rule that will be a little longer. So another descendant selector here, div nav ul li a dot current, and that would be a class, and then div nav ul li a dot current, and then hover open curly bracket. So let's not forget background color, just in case some viewers are using Internet Explorer. And then again I'm going to copy these values here, I'm going to paste them, Control V or Command V on the Mac, and I make sure that I have 00. Yes, we are using the same, but the color of my text, we have a different hex value of F63, and then we're gonna use as a cursor the default. So it looks like there's no link. Close that up. Now if I refresh here, you won't see anything because we have to go back to Dreamweaver and we have to go to the source code. And right here we have to give this a class. So class current. I'm gonna refresh. There we go. You don't get the cursor, and now this indicates that we're in the home page. Okay, and this is a nice rollover when you hover over. And so it's time for me to explain how to get to 384, and I'm talking about this number right here. Okay, so let's go for the width. The width is 80 pixels. So I get 80 times 4. I have 4 buttons here. So 80 times 4, that's 320. On top of that, I have 7 pixels left and right. And so I have 7 and 7, 14, 14, 14. So 14 times 4, whatever that is. So let's bring up the calculator here. And I have 14 times 4 equals 56. Now, each link here has a 1 and 1 border radius. I'm sorry, border of 1 pixel. So I have 1 and 1, 2. So 2 times 4, okay? And that's 8. So we have 56 plus 8 plus 320, 384. Now if I move this even 1 pixel, let's see, I'll make this a bit smaller, just 1 pixel smaller, and I refresh here, well, you see the problem. So I went down to the last pixel, and that's why these links are perfectly centered in the middle, because this div here, the div links, is 384 pixels. Alright? Alright, now let's work on this area. Now this area again has 2 divisions. This big division right here that has, which is actually, let's say, the div content maybe, or maybe I can call it div about, whatever. In any case, I do have 2 divisions here. Okay, this big one and that contains the smaller. So let's go to the website here and let's create these 2 divs. So that will be after the div line. And so we have 1 div, and then inside that div we have another division. Okay, this division here has an image. So insert image, the about icon, and then it has a heading, maybe heading 3 or 5. Let me go for heading 5, something smaller, and that will be, let's say, your name. Alright, and then let me save that. I'm going to go to the browser here, I'm going to click plus, and I'm going to write lorem. So that will be lipsum.com, and lorem ipsum here is simply dummy text. So I'm going to use this dummy text. I'm going to highlight, select this, right click, copy. Then I'm going to go to Dreamweaver, and I'm going to put this in a paragraph, and I'm going to paste that. And also I'm going to create a little bit more text. Okay, so I copy this just last line and paste it. And then I'm going to go right to my CSS and write some rules. Okay, so the first div, I will name this div about. The width of a div about is 700 pixels, and the background color has a hex value of 333. Now let me close this for a second, and let's continue with the CSS here. Create a little space. the smaller division that is contained within the div about, I will name this div content. Now this div content has a width 430 pixels. This is mostly eyeballing it. I didn't quite measure anything. So I'm going to put this in the middle. So 0 top to bottom, auto left and right. It has a background color 222. Has a border of 1 pixel. Solid border, and the color is simply black again. And so let's close this for a second. Let's go back to the source code. So give this ID, this div an ID. That will be the div about, and this will be the div content. Save that. Close that. We don't need this. Refresh. There we go. So it works pretty well so far. And here's the div about, and inside we have the div content. Now I need to take this text and bring it up right next to the image here. Alright, so let's work on that. Back to the CSS. Now, div content img, which means inside div content, find an element of img, div content, find an element of img, here's the image, img, and do something. So we're going to float this to the left. We're going to close that for now. Refresh. Now the text is right next to the image. But as you can see from here, the image has paddings and margins and also has a nice gradient to it. So let's work on that. So we have a lot to do with the content img. The image has a border of 1 pixel, a solid border, and a color simply black, which you won't see it now. You're going to see it very soon. Now let's not forget the background color for people that they're running Internet Explorer. And let's work on, let's put some padding first. I'm using like 16 pixels here. A little margin all around. I used 0.7 em. Feel free to use your own values here, of course. And let's write our nodes. So I'm going to create the gradients here. So apply comment. Okay. Let's scroll up. Let's take these, copy them, paste. Okay, the gradient from Mozilla, top, 2 color stops from black to 333. Same thing here. Linear gradient, left top, left bottom, black to another gray, dark gray. Let's refresh that. There we go. As you can see that now. I do have to put these round corners, and so we're going to write the border radius. Okay. Again, these are notes for our information. Apply comment. So the official recommendation one day will be border radius, and for that I'm going to use 15 pixels. But for now we need to use the prefixes from Mozilla and WebKit. So that will be outside your screen. So let me do that. Border radius, that will be 15 pixels. And for WebKit, border radius, another 15 pixels. Save that. Let's refresh. It works pretty good here. Let's go back to Dreamweaver and test this in Chrome, and it works pretty well here too. And let's test this on Safari, and it works pretty well here too. Okay, so looks pretty good. Let's see what else we have. Let me work on the text here. Now the text is your name is the heading 5. So let's write a descendant selector, div content, heading 5. Now the color of my text is simply white. I'm going to use a little padding on the top, 0.8 em. No padding at the bottom. No padding on the left. And no padding on the right. Let's close that. Let's see what we've done. Refresh. Here it is. Let's work on this paragraph, which is quite important. So another descendant selector, div content, P4 paragraph. And again, just to refresh your memory, I have the heading 5 here in the paragraph, and all the way up I mentioned all these here, and I took the margins and the paddings out, okay? Because by default they create spaces and so on. And so for the paragraph, the font size, I'm using 0.7 em. For the color of the text, use a hex value of 999. A little padding all around, 0.7 em. Again, feel free to use your own settings. And close that up for a sec. I'm gonna refresh. There we go. Now, I am gonna use a line height here. You can always experiment on your own how the line height will work. I'm going to use 1.4 em. If I refresh, I used a little bit of space between the lines here, okay? The text. Alright, now if you look at the original, first of all, I have a lot of space here. And then I have this gradient. So let's work on that. So to create the space, I'm going to go all the way up. And right here on the div about, I'm going to say padding top 60 pixels and padding bottom another 60 pixels. So let's see how this works. Refresh. There we go. Now I need to create these round corners that will be in the div content. Okay, so let's create a little space here, and gradients. Let's create our nodes. Apply a comment here. So here I have 3 gradients, 3 color stops. Okay, so an additional one. So that creates a little bit of an additional code, but not too much. So I'm just going to copy this and Control V or Command of the Mac to paste. And for the Mozilla here, again, is linear gradient. Starts from the top with color stops of 666, 333, and then we have one more, 222. Okay, so if I refresh that, it works pretty good. But that's not going to work on it's not going to work on Safari or Chrome, because here it changes just a bit. So it's linear, it's left top to left bottom, yes, from, let's write this, 666 to 222, comma, with a color stop. Okay? Open parenthesis, 0.5, comma, and that color stop has a hex value of 333. Close the bracket, save it. So, left top to left bottom, from 66, from this value to this value, but in the middle, which is 0.5, there's a color of 333. So let's save that and let's preview this on Safari, and it works pretty well as well. And let's also test this on Chrome. That works pretty well too. So now what we have to do is we need to create our rounded corners, and that will be border radius, and for that I'm using 15 pixels. I'm using the same. Let's create the prefixes for the Mozilla. So border radius. Let's do that again. (15 pixels). Okay. And then for the WebKit, that will be WebKit border radius, another 15 pixels. So let's try that. It works pretty well. Let's test this on Chrome, and of course it will work on Safari too. Alright. Now if we see the original here, we do have this nice box shadow that I mentioned before. And so let's do that. So we're gonna create our own nodes here. So that will be shadows. So highlight this, apply comment. Okay. Now that will be box shadow, and that will be 1 pixel to 1 pixel to another pixel. I'm going to explain this very soon. And actually no, this will be 4 pixels, and then that will have a blur value of 000. Okay, so let's also type, let's create the Mozilla here, box shadow. There we go. Let me create a little space here so you can see. Again, are the same values. I'm just going to copy these. I'm going to paste. And then for the WebKit, so WebKit box shadow. Again, paste these values. So let me explain that for a sec. The first number here represents the X offset, the Y offset, and the blur radius, the 4, and the color of that. So let's experiment with that. Let's say I create here 10. I'm going to save that. I'm going to refresh. Now the first value is the 10 is to the right. Then here, when I say 10, again I'm exaggerating the values. It goes down. So write it down, and here I have 4. So if I do 1, the lower the value, the sharper the shadow is, the blur shadow. Here we go. Okay, and the color of the shadow is black. So I'm going to go back, going to undo this. Okay, that's what I'm keeping this nice and 1 pixel, so I have a nice and soft shadow. Now you can play with these numbers, but you know, I do like what I have. And let's test this on Chrome. Let's save that, and it works pretty well on the Chrome as well. Okay, and let's see what else we have. So I think we're pretty much finished here on the box shadows, on the shadows, and then let's go back to the finished version. We do have this footer here, and the footer has an 1 pixel border at the bottom. And so let's go back to Dreamweaver and let's scroll down a bit. Let's go to the source code. Let's create another div and save that. And let's write a rule for the div footer. Open curly bracket. So the background of my footer is 222. The height of the footer is just 10 pixels. The width of the footer is 700 pixels. It's a border bottom of 1 pixel. A solid border with a hex value of 333. Close that. Save it. Let's go back to the source code. Give this div an ID. Div footer. Save. Refresh. There we go. We do have the footer as well. And I think we actually look identical. Okay, we have the links here. We have the nice gradients. And with the CSS, there's much better control over the layout of your websites. Now you can specify exactly where the element will appear on your page and apply any styles. Also, let's not forget the CSS3, which is the next evolution of cascading style sheets as an emerging technology. It all requires a lot of practice, but the results can be stunning. And so this concludes this lecture, and thank you for watching Third Element Train Tutorials.